first one. Fritz asked this question: from Sydney, Australia to Perth, Australia. So first we have to find Sydney and Perth. So let's zoom in and have a look. This Sydney. It's written here, Sydney. To Perth, Australia. It's there. But first we need to find the latitude and the longitude coordinates. From the meridian of Greenwich, it starts at 0. These are the longitude lines from 0 to 180 degrees. This is the east of Greenwich, and from 0 to 180 degrees, this is the west of Greenwich. It's also written on the map. So from the equator, everything above the equator is positive, and everything latitude below the equator is negative. So this is 15 degrees between these two lines. This is the 30 and the 45. So the best way is to divide the 15 degree line in 15 degrees. Divide each piece in 3 equal size pieces. I'll get a pretty accurate measurement. So this one will be 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, 10, 11, 13 and 14. That's the way we're going to do it on a piece of paper. When you're satisfied the way you divide it, you can cut it and use it to measure the other distances as well. So I hope you can see it. It's from the 0, it's 15 degrees plus 15 degrees plus 4 degrees. So now we have our first coordinate, that is 34 below the equator. It's minus 34 because we are below the equator. If you're above the equator, the north, we say it's a positive. Below is negative. I have to zoom with my remote and also show you on the map. So I will place a magnet in the center of the map to hold the string, and then I can zoom in so you can have a better look. Place some markers so you can see Sydney. There's a small circle there. On the longitude line, make sure the line is straight to the center, and then move the string until you reach Sydney, and you can read the degree on the circle. It's 150 plus 1 degree. So I'll place a marker. So now we have the coordinates for our first location, Sydney. The latitude is minus 34, longitude 151 east of Greenwich. So now we have to find the coordinates for our second location. Let me zoom in. So it's somewhere between 1.5 and 2, but for the purpose of this demonstration, let's say it's a 2. So from equator to Perth, it's 32 latitude below the equator. So this is 105 plus 10 degrees. So this is 105 plus 10 degrees, 115 degrees. Okay, the next step is to measure the distance between Sydney and Perth. I placed a marker on the 115 degrees for longitude line for Perth, and I placed another marker for Sydney at 151 degree. To measure the distance between Sydney and Perth, we need to know how many degrees are between Sydney and Perth. We have our longitude for Sydney, that's 151. Each longitude line is separated by 15 degrees, so this is 15 plus 15 is 30 degrees, plus 5 is 35, plus 1 degree is 36 degrees. So between Sydney and Perth we have 36 degrees. The real distance between Sydney and Perth is 36 degrees. That's the amount of degrees between Sydney and Perth. Multiply by 60 nautical miles. Why 60 nautical miles? To answer this question, we have to read between the lines. And it says 60 miles to the degree. It means for each degree is in reality 60 nautical miles. So the total distance between Sydney and Perth is 2,160 nautical miles, and we need a modern conversion to convert it to kilometers, and that's approximately 4,000 kilometers. So I hope I answered the question, and I have to say the Gleasons map is scientifically and practically correct. In the next video I'm going to answer the question to measure the distance from Sydney to Santiago de Chile. Thanks for watching. In this video I'm going to show you how to calculate and measure the distance from Sydney to the pole and from the pole to Santiago, and to circumnavigate from Sydney to Santiago. At the end of this video I'm going to show you that it is possible to calculate a straight path from Sydney to Santiago. But I will show you in another video how I did it. This is Chile, and we need to find Santiago de Chile, is the capital Santiago. Santiago is not written on this map, but there's another city, Valparaiso, and Santiago is west of Valparaiso. So I see a dot, a circle, a very small circle here. So I suppose this is Chile. But for the purpose of our demonstration, we can assume that this is Chile, and we'll use it as Chile. We found the location, the coordinates 34 and 151. So let's find out the coordinates for Santiago. Santiago is between two latitude lines. This is 30, between the 30 and the 45. So there it is, to pinpoint Santiago. I hope you can see it. 3 from small circle to the latitude line. The latitude is minus 33 west of meridian of Greenwich. Now we're going to measure the longitude line for Santiago, and our marker shows that Santiago is between the longitude 60 and the 75. So I placed a magnet on the pole to hold my string. Place a magnet to hold my string, and now we're going to measure. Move until you reach Santiago. Well, for the purpose of our demonstration, we say 71.5. Don's question is to measure the distance between Sydney and Santiago de Chile. We're going to measure the distance from Sydney to the North Pole and from North Pole to Santiago de Chile. And the next one, we're going to measure the distance from Sydney, circumnavigate to Santiago de Chile. In this case, it's going to be easy because we know our coordinates, we know the locations. So the only thing we need to do is to measure how many degrees lies between Sydney and the North Pole, and from the North Pole to Santiago de Chile. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 times 15 degrees plus 4 degrees to reach Sydney. From the North Pole, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 plus 3 degrees to reach Santiago. It means the distance from Sydney to North Pole, it's 8 times 15 degrees for each latitude line plus 4 degrees to reach Sydney. That equals to 124 degrees times 60 nautical miles makes a total of 7,440 nautical miles. We do the same from the North Pole to Santiago de Chile. The distance is 8 times 15 for the latitude lines. It's 8 times 15 plus 3 to reach Santiago. That makes a total of 123 degrees. Multiply it by 60 nautical miles and you get the real distance. That's 7,380 nautical miles. So the total distance from Sydney to Chile is 7,440 plus, that's the distance from Sydney to the North Pole, plus the distance from the North Pole to Santiago de Chile, and that makes a total of 40,820 nautical miles, and that's 27,464 kilometers. So we have to add 3.5 on this side and 14. That makes a total of 14 degrees plus 8 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 plus 3.5 degrees. You get the total amount of degrees. To circumnavigate from Sydney to Santiago, it's 14 degrees plus 8 times 15 degrees for the nautical miles plus 3.5 degrees to reach Santiago. That makes a total of 137.5 degrees. 137.5 degrees multiplied by 60 nautical miles, that makes a total of 8,250 nautical miles. That's 15,279 kilometers. These are the distances I calculated from using the Gleasons Map from Sydney to Santiago, from Sydney to the North Pole, and from North Pole to Santiago. This is the distance I calculated to circumnavigate Sydney to Santiago. And if you fly in a straight line, this is a flat plane, the distance will be shorter than 8,250 nautical miles. I showed you how to measure distances using the Gleasons Map. You can measure latitudes, longitudes, but you cannot measure in a straight line. Of course you can fly straight to Chile, but you cannot measure a straight line. You cannot, because the Gleasons Map is not scaled that way. It's a different ratio. you can only measure using the longitude or the latitude lines. And like I said before, this is not a scale to measure from one place to another. This is an 1892 conversion. By using this, I calculated a direct flight from Sydney to Santiago in a straight line. At this moment I'm just showing you the calculations, and in my later video I will explain it, because you won't be able to understand it at this moment. In this video I'm going to find a flight plan from Sydney to Tahiti. In my first video I showed you how to measure and find the coordinates for Sydney using some tools, and we're going to do the same for Tahiti, and then we're going to find our flight plan from Sydney to Tahiti. First we have to find Tahiti. So there it is, Tahiti. The question is a flight plan from Australia to Tahiti, and we're going to use this Gleason's map to demonstrate how to do it. Now we have found Tahiti. Let me put a marker. So there it is, Tahiti. We're going to measure the latitude, and then we're going to measure the longitude line. Let's start with the latitude. From the equator, the 0 degrees, we have the 15 degrees latitude line or circle, and the 30 degrees. Tahiti is between the 15 and the 30 degrees. So it's 15 degrees plus 2 degrees. That makes it 17 degrees. That's our first latitude, below the equator. So it's a negative number. We found our first coordinate for Tahiti. That is 15 degrees plus 2 degrees. It's 7 degrees below the equator. It's on the latitude line. West of meridian of Greenwich. Next, let's find our longitude coordinate. Therefore, my favorite tool, Dentafloss. Exactly on the center. Make sure you're on a longitude line, and then move it until you reach Tahiti. You have to move it just a little bit. As you can see, this is 1 degree, this is half a degree, so this is approximately a quarter of a degree. It means this is 150 degrees minus a quarter of a degree. That's 194.75. That's longitude minus 149.75 west of meridian of Greenwich. To find our flight path using the Gleason's map, we have to fly from Sydney. We are going to fly straight on the same longitude line north until we almost reach the latitude to bring us to Tahiti. So the latitude is the same, and from here, when we reach 17 degrees, we fly east on the same latitude, and we reach our destination. The question is the next coordinates to turn east. Let's find out. From Sydney, we have to fly on the same latitude north until we reach latitude minus 17 degrees. That's the same latitude of Tahiti, and then we have to fly east to reach Tahiti. It means the longitude is the same as 151, and from this, at this moment, we have to turn right, east direction, same latitude, and we will find our way to Tahiti. This is the latitude, and this is longitude. East meridian of Greenwich. We can also measure the distance from Sydney to this location, our turning point. First we have to fly north, and when we reach latitude 17, turn east, and we can also measure from this location to Tahiti. The latitude, the difference is in latitude, and from this one we can measure the degrees between the two longitude coordinates. To be more accurate, we can say it's 14 degrees plus 3 times 15 degrees plus a quarter of a degree to reach Tahiti. So it's easy to calculate. It's 15, 15, 15 plus 14 degrees. It means we have to fly 16 degrees north. That is 16 degrees times 60 nautical miles. That makes a total of 1020 nautical miles. 1020 nautical miles north. And from this position we have to turn east, and that's 3 times the longitude lines plus the 14 degrees to Sydney. That's 59 degrees. 59 degrees times 60 nautical miles, that makes a total of 3,540 nautical miles. The total distance from Sydney to Tahiti is 4,560 nautical miles.